Just wanted to let you know that Councilmember Price Hewish, to my left, to your right of me, counseled me to use the gavel effectively tonight and with force. So, anybody gets out of line, you're going to get gavelled, per Councilmember Price Hewish. Welcome to our council meeting, and sorry that we're a couple of minutes late. We had a previous meeting go long over time, and anyway, it's so good to see so many people here, and for such good things as well. Anyway, we're going to start the meeting with a thought and a prayer, and then we'll have the pledge of, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then the Pledge of Allegiance, then we'll have a thought or a prayer. The thought or prayer tonight will be given by Kelly Lonecker of the Stone Creek Stake, and that's after Ethan Higginson comes up and leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes, a relation. Ethan, you're up. Right here.
Please stand.
Ms. Lonecker, if you could make sure that the green light is on the microphone there, that would be grand. Thanks so much.
Our Heavenly Father, we are so grateful to gather together as members of our community tonight and to discuss issues that need to be decided and to make decisions regarding the community and the use of funds. We are so grateful for the young men of the Bountiful High football team and for their hard work and the blessings that Thou hast poured out upon them, and pray that they can continue to be blessed in their efforts and their work and the things and the goals that they are striving for. We are grateful for this Christmas time of year. We are grateful for the charity and the love that it brings into the hearts of everyone, and we pray that we might be made aware of those who are in need at this time, that we can open up our hearts and our minds to ways that we could love and serve them, that we can see the needs around us and look for ways to fill that. We pray that we can be inspired in our comments, and we pray for those that lead us, that they might be inspired in their decision making. We love Thee, and we are grateful for all of the many blessings and gifts that Thou hast given us, and pray also for a spirit of unity and love to be in this meeting tonight. And we say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much for both of those. You may recognize that I am not Mayor Kendall and Harris tonight. Unfortunately, Mayor Harris is not able to be here, and she wished she could have been. She took some steps to make preparations for some of the presentations that will be done later, but she, of course, wishes she could be here and sends her regrets. We now have time for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, comments will be limited to 2 minutes each. We'll have a comment period lasting a total of 10 minutes if there are enough folks that want to speak for 2 minutes each. And as you come up to the microphone, please introduce yourself, give us your address, and let us know what's on your mind. Thank you.
My name is Dwayne Boyce. Excuse me. I live at 1464 Barton Creek Lane. And what's on my mind is the plans for Eggett Park and the connector trail to Holbrook Trail. I sent a message to all of you yesterday reflecting the worries of our neighborhood. I learned of this plan by accident. I was shocked that I learned of it by accident because of the significant impact it would have on our neighborhood. I talked to my neighbors. They had not heard about these plans for Eggett Park, where we all live. And there was alarm. Now, I'm the only retiree in the neighborhood, so it would only made sense for me to take the lead. And so I've met with a number of city officials over multiple meetings the last few months. We've talked, some of you recognize me. We've met and talked. And our concerns really fall into three categories. You have them in my email. One is a general concept. It's one thing to be in favor of trails in general. Everybody's in favor of trails. But that's not the same thing as saying that every part of the trail plan is desirable for the citizens of Bountiful. It doesn't follow. When you get down to the nitty-gritty, the details of how it will affect an individual neighborhood, that's when you begin to see the impact, and it can change our view about the overall plan. So the concerns are traffic, parking, and safety, all of which I've detailed to you in my email. And, you know, again, being the only retiree, I took the lead. Therefore, my voice is the voice you've heard. I've learned since last night that it would have been smarter to organize a mail-in campaign so you could have heard from more people, because it's not plausible that I'm speaking for everyone because I'm the only voice being heard. I understand that, and I regret it. And I just ask for your mercy and to press pause on this action, to give it more thought, since we were all surprised by it and have not, you know, and it started long ago. We didn't know. And you can say we should have known, but we didn't know, and our voices haven't really been heard on this. And we would love it if you'd be a little merciful and kind on this issue. Just press pause. Would that be the worst thing? To just press pause and say, let's look at this again. The details for this particular neighborhood. That's what we ask. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Boyce. And there should be a robust discussion about this item later. Thank you.
Excuse me. My name is Andres Aldave. I came with the same issue as Dwayne. I live in 1486 East in Barton Creek Lane here in Bountiful. Besides the items that he discussed, my main concern really is the parking and the traffic violations. I'm an engineer by profession, so I deal with this a little bit. I read the proposal, the master proposal, and they were saying that they wanted to use the 29 stalls that we have at Eggett Park for these people to park there. But I don't know, I live next to that Eggett Park. I don't know if you have been there during the summer in a given weekend. Most of the time, that park is totally full because people come and use the park for weddings, for birthdays, for gatherings, family reunions, you name it. So if that is the case, then where are these people going to park? Now, that comes to the second issue, where I don't know if the fire marshal was involved in this decision, because in order for a fire truck to operate, not just to drive through, I mean, to drive through probably needs 12 feet. That street is about 32 and a half feet. If you park cars on both sides of the street, you will have about 16 foot left. So you might say, well, the fire truck could drive through, but the problem is, by code, the fire truck needs 26 feet in order to operate. So basically, if in a given weekend we have all the people full in the park, and then we have some additional people parking along the side of the streets, if there is a fire, we have a hazard there. And I know that the cities are very specific about code violations. I deal with them all the time. And I'm surprised that in this case, maybe it was ignored, excuse me, or was done enough research to find out what happened if it's a fire with a fire truck.
Thanks, Andres, and it's good to see you. Any others who'd like to speak? Please.
Gary Davis, 2814 South, 500 West, Bountiful. Sort of, not really directed at the city council, but for the public. I was a little surprised to hear that allegedly Davis County School District does not want parents escorting their children through crosswalks. Interesting. What's the other thing here? Trying to see what it says. Oh, I'm a little concerned with government and a small group of people wanting special rules for everybody based upon things that they think might maybe possibly happen sometime in the future. Sort of. And I find it amazing that somebody would actually sit there in front of the police chief and say, The only time I travel the speed limit is when I see a radar trap. Interesting. Anyway, that's all I got. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Mr. Davis. To you, too. Anyone else? Okay.
Looks like you have one more.
Oh, great.
Council, it's nice to see you all tonight. My name's Randy Byer. I actually just wanted to speak on behalf of this trail system as well. I actually am a huge proponent of all the trails. I understand the points of these gentlemen discussing the fact that it could, have a different impact on parking and situations of this sort. I also believe that one of the things that we have is a growing sport with mountain biking. I can state some statistics that would be helpful, which is our high school mountain bike team has over 150 kids. These kids, on average, ride between 1,500 and 3,000 miles a year on their mountain bikes. And it's also very unsafe for them to be riding on the roads and the streets because we don't have a lot of options for them to be able to get trail access. So just a point of view to think about as you're contemplating this, to also think about the safety of these young riders that are trying to navigate through the streets and make it back and forth to practice safely. Thanks.
Is there anyone else who'd like to opine this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to council reports. First, I should check and see if Councilmember Murray is supposed to be meeting with us remotely. Let's give it a test and see if he can hear us and we can hear him. Councilman Murray?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Please feel free to join in anytime you have a comment.
Thank you.
Reports then. We'll start with Councilmember Price Hewish.
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks. Councilmember Child.
I have nothing to report either.
Councilmember Bradshaw.
Mr. Mayor Pro Temp, just want to remind the community that the Winter Art Market at the BDAC is still open through December 21st. They're open from 10 to 6 during weekdays and Saturdays from 12 to 5. If you haven't ever attended the Winter Art Market, it's a collection of a lot of local art vendors. If you are looking for unique and creative gifts for your family members, if you're looking for some fun neighborhood gifts, if your neighborhood participates in traditions like that, they have some really fun things. We've picked up a few over the years that have come to live at our house for the holiday season. It's also an important way that the BDAC fundraises for their operations. It's a great nonprofit organization supporting the arts in our community. So if it's been a while since you've checked it out, consider doing so. They are also engaged in year-end fundraising. So if you're looking for charitable causes that would appreciate your dollars and those dollars would stay here in our local community, consider the BDAC.
Thanks for that. I will mention as well that there are pieces of art there available in all price ranges. We've been there and gotten neighbor gifts and some other things as well, and they've been very affordable. So please check out that Winter Art Market at the Bountiful Davis Arts Center. Okay, Council, we'll move on to Agenda Item 4, consider approval of expenditures and a financial report.
If I may, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the expenditures greater than $1,000 paid on November 20th and 27th, 2024, and the October 2024 financial report.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you for that. Next item on our agenda, we're going to have a recognition of Ms. Jana Monson. And I believe we have a recording of Mayor Harris. And if not, it will be a much shorter congratulations than it otherwise might have been.
Johnson.
Hi there. I'm Mayor Kendall Harris, and I'm really sorry I couldn't be with you tonight, traveling tonight to Washington, D.C., but really excited for this opportunity to honor Jana Monson. And Creative Arts Academy was founded by Jana in 2004. And so for 20 years, Jana has directed and owned Creative Arts Academy. And when the studio opened, it was arts, dance, music theater, singing, drama, visual arts. But as the studio grew, they kind of became more focused on dance training, ballet, jazz, contemporary hip hop, and tap and ballroom. And their mission has been to create exceptionally trained dancers, but who also understand the importance of giving back and service in the community. So through the years, Creative Arts Academy students have been hired into professional dance companies. They have been accepted and received scholarships to prestigious universities and have been hired for commercial work across the United States. It's really impressive, the list of places where Creative Arts Academy students have been featured. They've won many awards, including being chosen Creative Arts Academy was chosen at Nationals as the top 5 studio in the country at the Dance Awards Studio of the Year. And Jana Monson was also chosen to be on the cover of a magazine that features dance teachers and recognizes excellence. So in July of 2011, there was a devastating fire that was an accidental HVAC accidental fire there. And so it burned the buildings to the ground. But Creative Arts Academy, led by Jana Monson, was rebuilt. And they now since then, offers training in this state-of-the-art facility, which stands in the heart of Bountiful's Main Street. And it has 11 dedicated dance studios. And they also host the Grand Ballroom, which has wedding receptions and events there. One thing that's really impressed me is Jana Monson's dedication to the community. She has started charity concerts for families in need. And so every year, the Creative Arts Academy does a charity concert and they've raised over $200,000 for families in need. And so I just think this journey that Jana has led for the last 20 years has been amazing. And what I love is that she has invested in our most important asset, our most important resource, which is our children, and given them confidence, given them opportunities, all while bringing people to downtown Main Street to support our local businesses and to be a part of the economy there. So Jana, I'm so grateful to you and for the service that you have provided to our community and to our children. Thank you so much for your 20 years of work and service. Thank you. And just a special note too to the Bountiful High School football team. I am a Viewmont Viking. I graduated from Viewmont, but I am a Red Hawk with you. And I think that the work that you did to achieve first place at state, you don't get there by accident. That was a lot of hard work that you put in. And so I'm so grateful to you. Go Red Hawks. And I'm excited for the Bountiful High School football team. But back to Jana Monson. That's 20 years of work that has really that has really made a difference in our community. And for that, we're so grateful to you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi there. I'm Mayor Kendall Harris. I'm really sorry I couldn't be with you tonight, traveling tonight to Washington, D.C.
It was worth hearing again. Council members, would any of you like to also make comments?
Pro Tem, if I may.
Please.
I actually don't think I can talk about Jana without crying. I think we should.
Now, would you please come up to the mic?
I will try to be brief. even though the impact that Jana Monson and her business has had on my life has been long and on our family and to so many children and adults. When you think about giants in the community and heroes, Jana, you are one of my heroes. You are right on the top of my list. You've made the community better every day you've lived in it. And our mayor spoke really eloquently about all the awards that you have won and the excellence and the high level of attainment that your dancers have achieved. All 5 of my kids have crossed through the doors at Creative Arts Academy. None of them were exceptionally talented, but they still felt a home there at Creative Arts. They felt like it was a fun place, a place they could learn, they could grow, they could be themselves. And you made it a place where every kid could come, whether they were going to end up at Juilliard or just as one of my first kids to be in one of your shows, a milkshake on the stage, a 3-year-old dressed as a milkshake. I just appreciate your vision for moving your business onto Main Street and being a real anchor there. And I don't think there's one person who has ever met you who you have not made feel special. You remember people, you remember the details of their children and what they're doing, even if they're not one of your top flight dancers. And there have been thousands who've crossed through your doors. And as I looked out even at this amazing Bountiful High football team, even my son who played both ways, offense, defense, on the Bountiful High football team and graduated in 2017. He took many years of hip hop at Creative Arts. So just put that in the back of your mind. Maybe hip hop could really even help your football game. So Jana, thank you. I love you with my whole heart. I love what you've done for the kids in our community. And from the most humble of, kids who don't have that much talent, my kids, but to the most elevated. And Bountiful will forever, to what is the quote from Wicked? Because Bountiful has known you, we have been changed for the good. Thank you.
Well said. Please.
Mayor Pro Tem, our family's also been influenced and touched by your service in this community, and I am personally grateful for that and grateful for the city for what you've done for bringing so many people to Main Street. And kind of like the Music Man, the kids walk out walking taller and feeling proud and feeling like they're really part of something. And that's your influence that will last a lifetime and beyond as they share that with others. I just echo what Councilman Price Hewitt said and what Mayor Harris said, but thank you so much for the impact you've had.
Thank you. I am not a dancer. That's not where my athletic skills have ever guided me. I probably should have signed up for at least a hip hop class. But I have loved the vibrancy that your small business has brought to Main Street. Main Street is my favorite street in Bountiful. I'm gonna, even though I love all of Bountiful, I'm gonna declare Main Street is my favorite street. And one of the things that I love is sometimes when I'm walking Main Street, it's as your classes are switching. And I love that you have brought youth to Main Street. I love it when, you see a group of often young girls that are dropped off and they're in their dance gear, they're in their tights, they're excited as they're heading into class, and then you see some of them, maybe the older girls that are finishing up, and sometimes they're heading into the Town Square Park for snacks or to chat, or they're heading over to Blacksmith, and I love that you brought vibrancy thanks to your small business, thanks to engaging with youth. It's really paid amazing dividends to our city that you brought that vision and that commitment to us. So thank you. I don't think you should retire. So maybe rethink that. We can, we can continue in other ways, and maybe in another 5 or 10 years we can come back and repeat this. But it's been an honor the way you have brought such vibrancy to our Main Street. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you all so much.
Gianna, we have a certificate for you here. I wish we had $1 million in bouquet for Sean, but we do not have that. But I just want to read it to you really quickly. It says, "Certificate of recognition presented to Jana Monson by the Mayor and Bountiful City Council in recognition of your many years of dedicated service as the owner of Creative Arts Dance Company and your invaluable contributions to the arts and community in Bountiful. Your passion for teaching and inspiring young dancers has left a lasting impression." I would add this on my own as well, and that is that the youth growing up in this community have the benefit of having just an amazing group of parents and supporters and coaches, yourself among several of those categories, to help them achieve what they want to achieve, what they're willing to achieve. And thanks for being part of that support structure that helps the kids here have so many opportunities and be able to succeed so much. So I want to give this to you.
Thank you so much.
Another round of applause for Shannon. All right, next on the agenda, I will confess this, I missed 3 games this season. Gentlemen, I'm sorry about that. We were out of town for a couple of them and had another issue that kept me away, but I didn't miss either of the 2 Roy victories. So those 2 were very satisfying. And to be able to finish up at Rice Eccles against Roy again, that was just the right finish for the season. We want to congratulate you, but first we want to have your coaches come up and have your coaches present what they want to present about your championship season. Please.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and be recognized tonight. For our players to be here and to hear the business, and we take a lot of pride in our city. We firmly believe that we live in the best city. The support that we feel from our community is incredible. Our home games, the atmosphere is, whether you have the community shows up, whether there's players that they know or just they want to be a part of it. And we just love this community. And, this season was pretty special. We know that, finishing it the way we did. A lot of the reflection goes into last year for us. We made a very special run as a team that wasn't really supposed to be there. And we believed it, but no one else did. And we were able to put together a really special season that ended in the state final. And from that point forward, as a team, we knew that we wanted to get back there and to win it. And that was a great challenge, honestly, to be able to focus on each individual task and not get ahead of ourselves, but be in each moment, take the time in the weight room, take the time on the field conditioning, coming together as a team. And I was just so proud of these guys this season for that, and not getting ahead of themselves, and just really trusting in the process and the resilience and the bounce back. And we were fortunate to win most games we played. Our one loss came in double overtime, and it was just what we needed as a team. And again, credit to our players for their determination and their willingness to come out and continue to fight. And for us to be able to make it back to Rice Eccles and to make that a second home, and then to finish that state championship the way we did, it's something that we'll all never forget. And it speaks a lot about what they're going to become. And that's what we hope for them, is that this is just the first championship that they win in their lives, and they have to find their next task and their next challenge and find a way to contribute to the community. But these are great young men who are going to become leaders in the community and in business and in all areas of life. And we were just so grateful for them and for this run, and again for being able to be here tonight and have a moment to be recognized. And they've earned it, and they're a special group. And so thank you for the opportunity.
Coach, has it been 21 years since you won a championship last?
That's correct, 21 years. I was actually a sophomore on that team.
Wow.
On the practice team, but you know, we know how important the practice team is. A lot of guys here are a huge part of that, and that's what really makes the success. But it was 21 years, which is, again, such an amazing accomplishment that these guys were able to achieve.
Would it be possible to introduce the other coaches that are here this evening?
Yes, absolutely. We have our defensive coordinator, Jason Walker.
Come on up. If you don't mind bringing them all up, Coach, let's have the coaches come up, and then we'll have the young men come up as well and get a picture of everyone.
We also have Coach Mo Manu, who's here with us, who's a Bountiful alum himself. We have Coach Forrest Sochi. We also have our athletic director, who is here with us tonight, Clark Stringfellow.
Perfect.
Which we appreciate all he does in his support.
And can we bring the boys, gentlemen, if you could come up front, stand up here. First of all, we want to give you a standing ovation. All the way across the front, if you would. One more thing I want to say as you come up here, gentlemen, this doesn't happen unless you have the right parents, and unless you have the right coaches, unless you have the right supporters, but especially unless you have the right thing within you. So I hope that you'll recognize the rarity of this occasion and your accomplishment, and that carries you and makes you reach just a little bit higher in the things that you're destined to do. But we're so proud of you and wish you our congratulations. Now, if we could, everybody turn around and face that guy in the sweater. That's Gary Hill, our city manager. And he's going to get a picture.
Sir. Wait for the live.
Players, before you sit down, how about a hand for your parents and supporters as well? Give your parents a hand. We sincerely thank you folks for coming tonight. First of all, the Monsons, as well as the football team, to let us congratulate you. Our community is, we feel like it's the best community, and we know that it's that way in large part because of the people that we have here. So thanks for your accomplishments, thanks for your work, thanks for your victories, and thanks for being here tonight. You're welcome to stick around and hear us talk about boring things. It's not so boring, I guess, if it pertains to you personally, but otherwise you're welcome to leave as well. Thanks so much for being here. And a thank you. Agreed.
It's rather warm, but I feel like it's really weird to take it off on camera.
Okay, with that done, I don't see Todd Christensen. There he is. Mr. Todd Christensen, will you please take agenda item 7, please?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, some of the goals and objectives of the 2019 Trails Master Plan include the accommodating of existing and future use of the recreational areas and providing such support uses or such support for these as parking, amenities, and so forth. The Holbrook Trailhead includes about 14 parking spaces if they're packed in really well. And a lot of times demand is higher than that. We expect that demand will continue to increase for the Holbrook Trailhead area. The Agate Park has 29 parking stalls and some other amenities that would be nice for trail users. The proposed trail will link these two facilities together to better utilize the parking and the other amenities at Agate Park. So this park would essentially act as an extension of the Holbrook Trailhead. We do have some trails on our Trails Master Plan up in the Holbrook area that do and will require Forest Service approval. The Forest Service recognizes the limited parking at the Holbrook Trailhead, and they may require the Agate to Holbrook Trailhead connector in order to move forward on approval of some of these additional trails that are on our Trails Master Plan. This particular trail does cross through steep slopes. There are other constraints. It is understood to be one of our, a technically challenging trail connection, and will require some crucial rock retaining work. We had a design for this trail much earlier this year, put it out to bid this summer. We didn't get any bidders. Later, we did approach a few contractors and received proposals from Elite Landscape and Avid Trails. Elite Landscape, they are the contractor who built the Sunset Trail that links the Hidden Lake Trailhead with the VST on the south end of town. They did an excellent job. They also specialize in rock retaining walls, and so staff is more comfortable with Elite's experience and ability with rock retaining wall work. They also had a significantly lower unit price on rock retaining walls, which we see as a potential for needing to have an increase in quantity from the quantity that was bid. I want to point out some of the significant impact items. First, funding. We have received a $20,000 donation from an anonymous donor specifically for this trail. We also have received a $20,000 award from Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant for this project. And we've also received a recent $10,000 donation that we can use for this project. And another significant impact is that the connection between Holbrook Canyon Trailhead and Agate Park improves neighborhood connectability and is critical for future trail approvals by the Forest Service. Staff recommendation is that the City Council accept the proposal for the Agate to Holbrook Trail from Elite Landscape Services for $123,260.
So I have a couple of questions, Todd, if I could.
Sure.
What's the elevation gain from the parking lot at Agate to Bountiful Boulevard?
The elevation difference is 160 feet.
And tell me a little more detail about what the nature is of the retaining walls that'll be required on this trail extension.
Okay, the trail will cross through, and by the way, I will state, there is an existing kind of an ad hoc user-defined, we call it user-defined trail that goes up through the area, all the way up to Bountiful Boulevard. It's steep through the very steep portion of the area, so that through the steep terrain, it's a very steep foot trail. I don't think, I've never seen bike tracks on that trail, or on, you know, on that part of the trail. And the, so that area, which is really just to the side of the spillway of the dam, between the spillway of the dam and our reservoir, the Agate Reservoir, it has some really steep terrain, between 60 and 80%.
This is on page 35 of the packet, if you'd like to, refer to that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, so you can see where we have 3 switchbacks, and the train just traverses back and forth across that. That's the steep terrain right through there. So the retaining walls, we see, because it's such a steep terrain, and we will be putting a relatively flat trail through that terrain, that we'll need to retain the trail.
So those will be especially focused on those 2 switchbacks that face the canyon.
Yes, yes, and in particular where the slope through there is between 60 and 80%.
Thank you.
Todd, can you?
So can I just follow up on that really quick?
That was where I was going. I wonder if we're going the same place.
I'm just wondering if we can clarify this trail that we're looking at on page 35. This is not following the foot traffic the user identified. Is that what we call it?
That is correct. The foot traffic goes pretty much straight west, and so it crosses this, this proposed trail crosses that existing foot traffic trail, I guess you'd call it, 4 times.
So my question was along those lines, having done the user-created trail a few times, including pushing a bike, what will the slope be utilizing the switchbacks that you've designed?
The trail standards for this, although we would love to have a trail that met the beginner difficulty level, we didn't see that as possible. Our consultants couldn't find a way to do that, although they did find a way to make it blue or intermediate difficulty level with an average slope of about 7%.
7%. So difficulty due to grade, not necessarily difficulty due to obstacle?
Yes, yeah, bicycle, and that's the bicycle parameter for difficulty, yes.
And then total length of the trail?
The total length of what you see, the blue is about 4/10 of a mile. That includes the little dashed section.
The dashed section is the existing paved?
Yes.
That services that access road?
Yes.
And the property that it crosses to reach Bountiful Boulevard, who owns that property?
Bountiful City owns all of the property. It does come close, it comes close to one of the other properties there, well, 2 of the other properties. And I'm trying to remember the owner of that property. We met with one of the owners, but I don't remember their name right now. Drescher. Yeah, Drescher.
May I ask, what safety measures will be in place to help people cross Bountiful Boulevard? Just, anything right there?
Inconvenient Traffic Safety Committee.
Yeah, there's nothing for sure right now.
Not on this, okay.
Yeah, but what we did locate the terminating point of this trail to what we thought would be the most ideal place to have a crossing.
I'm also
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a quick question for Todd as well. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
but-
on that budget estimate there too, how much of that would be used towards other parts of the trail improvement? Not just the switchbacks and that, but all the way down to the bottom. Would there be plans to do some trail improvements and enhancements down in that area as well?
I'm not sure I understood that question. Are you asking?
So the retaining walls on that we were talking about earlier on the switchbacks and all that, but we see a trail going from the Bowery all the way up. So would this budget include other parts of that? Would it include improving the entire trail or just the parts that are dirt right now?
Okay, it would include, no, it would just include the parts that are dirt. We're not proposing any improvements to the old pavement, just using it for the alignment.
But it does
Okay.
complete from the Park Pavilion to Bountiful Boulevard.
Yes, yes. So if you look at the map that's got the blue lines here, it does include from the lower piece, everything that's solid is work that will be required by the contractor and is included within the scope of this.
Todd, I'm wondering, with the 20,000 Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant, are we time constrained with that money?
Yes, we would need to use that money by, I think it is mid-year 2026. We were given 2 years, and that was earlier this year when it was awarded.
And specific to this purpose?
Yes, although, I mean, I suspect, I know that they have allowed for extensions, but we'd have to ask for an extension and see if they would grant an extension.
And Todd, I'm wondering if you'd help me understand this is critical for future trails approval by the Forest Service. Can you help me understand that?
Yeah, so on the last page of this staff report, it shows an area, the Holbrook area, with a lot of our trails shown in this area. Some of these trails cross through Forest Service property. And one of the things that is a paramount consideration for the Forest Service is trailhead. Do we have a trailhead sufficient to support the additional use of these trails? So that's what they're looking at.
Is there approval for those future trails dependent upon the approval of this connector?
Possibly. They haven't said for sure, but it has been brought up as this, and by the way, let me back up just a little. We currently have proposed 4 trails to the Forest Service that are now under review. And we spoke with Forest Service earlier today. They still are under review. We don't know where it stands. We don't know for sure if they're going to throw that on as a requirement, but it is still a possibility.
How many parking stalls exist currently at Agate Park?
At Agate Park, 29, including the 2 handicap accessible parking stalls.
And has a traffic count been done on Barton Creek Lane in the recent past?
No.
I'm wondering, I am grateful to Mr. Boyce and Aldave, who have come tonight and expressed their concerns about their neighborhood. We all, I think, feel, really protective about our neighborhoods and want them to remain, places of peaceful, quiet enjoyment. I don't know if this would be putting our chief on the spot, maybe a little bit. We've done it before, though. But I'm wondering, I think one of the concerns that have been expressed is traffic. One is, let's see, parking, safety, traffic, et cetera. And while we don't have a crystal ball, I'm wondering if the chief could maybe address some of those concerns in this area.
Not knowing exactly what you're asking me, so bear with me. I would suspect that there would be some more traffic, right? Because you're providing a trailhead for somewhere else, and I think this gentleman mentioned how mountain biking is increasing, and if that's going to be the use for that specific trail or not, I don't necessarily know. But yes, I would suspect that there could be increased traffic there at the park. Knowing this being on the agenda, a couple of years ago, I had a conversation with my colleague in Kaysville. Obviously unrelated to this topic because it was a couple of years ago, but I did remember him speaking about a similar issue that Kaysville was having at the time. So I did reach out to him today to get clarification about their experience. And they did not see an increase in crime or those sorts of scenarios based upon a trailhead or trails being placed in their residential area that they happened to be dealing with at the time.
Chief, oh, sorry.
No, I just was going to say thank you because I think that is exactly what people are concerned about. Does this bring maybe more traffic, might bring more eyes and actually be a mitigator? I've heard that before, but what you're saying is Kaysville has experienced at least no increase.
Correct.
In crime, criminal mischief.
He didn't have any specific data to be able to back up what an increase or a decrease was, but they did also mention that by having people who are there using it responsibly, it does bring eyes and responsible people to the area to report things that may not have been reported otherwise.
Talk about parking. If parking were to leak out of the parking lot and be placed on the street, could a fire truck get past if cars are parked on both sides of the street? It's pretty narrow.
I was looking at it back there as well. Again, I don't have the dimensions on what that is, so I'm probably not the best person to ask that, but yeah, I think if cars were parked on both sides of the street leaking out there, is that a...
Usually you're not, Andreas, but because it's you, I will allow it.
Have him come to the microphone.
Yeah, will you please come up to the mic?
No, the question is, we are not against the trail, okay? I mean, I live there, I use it, it's already a trail there. And the question is, right now there's an Eggett Park, okay? And the Eggett Park has 29 stalls. So people who go to the park to use the park are already using the 29 stalls. I mean, I don't know if you have been there during a weekend, I mean, it is full. So they use all the parking. So when they are saying that we want this park for the people who are going to do the mountain biking, where, I mean, if those parks are already taken, where are they going to park? They have to park in the street, right? Now, by code that I know, I mean, you can, I mean, I measured my street, okay, it's 32.5 feet. You can park in both sides of the street in at least about 16 feet. You can drive a fire truck. That's not the problem. The problem is if there is a fire, the code requires that you have at least 26 feet to operate the truck. If that's the case, so if the whole parking stalls in the Eggett Park is taken, and people are parking along the side of the street, you only had 16 feet left, but the fire truck won't be able to operate because it doesn't have enough space to operate. This is the main concern that I have.
Thank you for that. I will say this. I met with Mr. Boyce and the mayor and 2 members of staff. When was that meeting? Summer?
September.
So since that time, either 4 or 5 times I've gone up to Eggett Park to just gauge random times of day. And the most cars I've ever seen there is 2. Now, maybe I'm just going at the wrong time. But, oh, sure, understood. Oh, I believe that it's full.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, please.
we do happen to have a parks expert. It's our
Really?
parks director, Mr. Brock Hill. He is here. I would love to hear from our parks director about whether this is one of our deeply utilized parks or underutilized parks, since the parks staff is in and out of those for maintenance throughout the city. So since we have that expert
Please.
designated for such tasks, I'd love to hear what his response would be.
Mr. Hill, would you be willing? Thank
Mayor
you.
Pro Tem, while Mr. Hill's approaching, I'd make a comment about the street width. So many of the streets in Bountiful are 30 feet wide, 30 feet of asphalt, some slightly more, some significantly more. The provision of a requirement for 26 feet of space for a fire truck to access a public street would put the majority of our streets in violation. I don't know that we've ever experienced any troubles because of those pavement widths. And I would suspect that we would not experience the same difficulties here either.
Thank you for that. Mr. Hill,
So, Mayor Pro Tem, if I could ask.
please, absolutely.
Brock, we have a number of city parks. Where does this park rank in terms of highest use or lowest use or medium use?
I was just looking at that today, given the topic for tonight, and my stats show that Eggett Park is the second least used park in our park inventory. Next is Eziger.
And do you find, in your professional capacity, that it could handle additional parking if it were to service both a park and a trailhead?
Yeah, in my opinion, yes. It is a park that is used for reservations, as indicated tonight. It was only reserved 37 times in the 6 months that it's available for use. So the reservations are minimal compared to our other parks. In fact, of the reservable parks, it is the least reserved park, and then the second least used park in our inventory.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Brad. That satisfies my questions.
I have witnessed, we've stood on the boulevard several times, me and a couple of my staff, and we've watched as people use the park. We've watched as people try to navigate that hill, and Andres has talked about climbing that hill. I think he could speak to how difficult that is. One day when I was there, there were several that tried navigating that slope, and it's just not a safe slope. The one gentleman we watched, he fell down 3 times trying to get up and down it. So, for us as a Parks Department, that's of concern because safety is a huge issue for us. And people are going to use the park. They're going to use that trail that's existing to get from the neighborhood up to the boulevard. It's just happening. There's nothing we can do that's going to keep them safe aside from improving the facilities that are there.
Other questions or thoughts, council?
I have some thoughts, Mayor Pro Tem, but I will hold them if other council members still have questions for.
I have an additional question. How long has this connector trail been on the Trails Master Plan?
Since its inception in 2019.
Thank you.
You ready for thoughts?
And to add to that conversation in 2019, it wasn't just necessarily a trail for mountain biking. It also was an opportunity to connect the lower neighborhood, as Brock, as you mentioned, just creating a safer access point for them to be able to walk up and walk the boulevard, do what lots of other residents do along the boulevard, but also the secondary benefit was to connect also mountain bikers to get from the lower neighborhoods up to the boulevard, and then from there access Holbrook or pedal further down to access Mila Park.
Piggybacking off that comment, Councilman Murray, one goal of the Trails Committee and the council since the start of the process has been to allow the connection of our parks to the foothills. And if this trail is successfully passed, this, I think, would become the first connection to do that, to reach that goal. So, Councilmember Bradshaw.
Thank you. So these are, council members, these are just some thoughts, as you know, thanks to personal hobbies and interests, and then thanks to assignments via the Utah League of Cities and Towns. I've spent a lot of time engaged in trails and with the Utah Outdoor Adventure Commission. And this connector is similar to many that are being sought and considered across the state, and many communities don't have some of the options that we have with this particular trail connector. It does dovetail with our discussions we've been having as part of our general plan about active transportation, making it so people using their feet and their legs can feel safe moving from point A to point B and to access outdoor recreation opportunities without having to get in their car. Undoubtedly, this project does have benefits related to parking and related to our shared engagement with the Forest Service on trails. But the comments I would make would speak to, I think, the benefit it would provide for people to not use their cars. For our residents, the bulk of our residents live west of Bountiful Boulevard. The population base of the city is very much west of Bountiful Boulevard. Bountiful Boulevard is both a kind of the gateway to our foothills. It's also our flattest, longest exercise corridor. But getting to that exercise corridor and to the foothills beyond often means traveling east up steep streets, the two most direct routes being 400 north and 1800 south. If you haven't walked or biked those in a while, they're a fun challenge. You should do it. They're obviously major roads for us, major collector roads. They're intended to be that way, so they're heavily trafficked. They're steep, and part of the reason I asked the question to Todd about grade is because grade's important. People seek grades that are, not Everest-like if they're going to travel using their feet and then by their legs for the most part. So 4th North and 1800 South are challenges for people to, walk, run, or bike straight up. That means a lot of the times people are seeking to take a route that takes them through a circuitous route through our city in order to access Bountiful Boulevard or the trails, or they just drive. We have long sought via the Trails Master Plan to find routes that would help people do that route in an active transportation way that felt safe, and to do it at grades that weren't ridiculously challenging. Our mountain bike coach for the high school team, Randy Byers, alluded to the number of youth that we have participating and riding through our city. Those youth are often after school riding from their homes west of Bountiful Boulevard, riding east up through our city. A lot of them are taking the challenge of doing 1800 and 400 North as part of their hills training, but a lot of them are seeking safer active transportation routes to do that. I'm aware of one of our former city council colleagues with a son on the team who was often riding home at dusk because he was trying to ride after school. His family became a single car household, which meant that his mom wasn't able to take him up the hill, so he was riding up the hill, practicing with the team, and riding down. And definitely, his mom had shared some instances where it was a close encounter coming down 1800 at dusk and competing with cars. A route like this, going through slower, quieter neighborhood streets, utilizing one of our city parks, helps our youth be able to not rely on their parents to get up on the hill. If you are on Bountiful Boulevard at any time in our mornings, you'll notice there's the early workout crowd. There's what I like to think of as the school drop-off crowd. And then there's the people whose work-life schedule maybe allows them to just pick the sunnier, brighter parts of the morning. But we have a really active group of people walking dogs, biking, running on Bountiful Boulevard, and they're often driving to do it. I think this connector provides a great opportunity for them to consider, instead of driving the 2 or 3 minutes to Bountiful Boulevard, a safe alternative at a different grade to walk or bike to Bountiful Boulevard so they can engage in all those things that bring wellness and benefits to our community, those things that we are tracking through the Utah State study that we really pride ourselves on. So I would urge us to keep those things in mind as we're thinking about, though this is a very short trail, it really punches above its weight in the types of access and opportunities it can open up for our community, for active transportation, and particularly near and dear to my heart are those youth that are part of the teams that are going up and down to our hillsides every afternoon after school. And that's the end of the soapbox, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Are there any other comments or other questions?
I'd like to make, oh,
I'll allow it, Mr. Hill, but only because it's you.
Whoa, thank you. I think it needs to be stated that we're not asking for a renaming or a redesignation of Agate Park. It's going to remain Agate Park. We're not going to advertise it as a trailhead. We're not asking for the name or the designation to be changed. It's simply build a trail that connects the neighborhood to the foothills above Bountiful Boulevard. It will remain Agate Trail and will be thought of and treated of and maintained in that order. Thank you.
well, Brooke is still here. Could I,
Please.
I just want to, I don't know, make a statement and then kind of clarify with you. I love all of the investments that we've made as a city into the trail system. And it's really fun to look at the map, right, and see, oh boy, that's been built out, et cetera, et cetera. There are some areas that we still need to build out at some point in the future, you know, invest in that and kind of make some more, is this fair to say, maybe some more accessible routes to some of the areas that we built up above Holbrook? It's difficult to access some of that area. And what, I mean, unless you're kind of on that more expert level. And what I'm hearing and what I've read in the report is that our ability to really get those really critical approvals from the U.S. Forest Service for some of those more intermediate trails that are going to help more people to access and really utilize the investments that we've already made are dependent on connectors such as this. Is that what we're saying here today? I mean, it's really a protection and of our investment and helping to extend and make even more accessible, potentially in the future, what we've already done.
Yes, that's fair to say. In our conversations this morning with the Forest Service, one of the big concerns that they're looking at now that somehow is just becoming an issue for them is the deer population. Their biologists have finally come on scene after we've been pleading with them for several months to help us out here. So the consideration that they have now thrown into the mix is that, hey, we're going to look at all the trails and you might have to give up some to get some, but these are the things that we're going to require. And this was part of that discussion. So as a requirement or a potential requirement, that's what we're up against right now.
they may not allow us to build anymore. They may not allow us to connect what is up there right now if we don't do this. Now, that's on the table. We don't know where that's going, like Todd mentioned it earlier. We don't know what that means for us, but it's certainly a consideration they're looking at.
Thank you. So what we do know is we own the property. We have nearly half the funding in place to pay for this. It's critical for future U.S. Forest Service approvals. And it's an area that has parking amenities. I feel comfortable with what our city engineer has shared about the fire truck access. I appreciate that being brought up. That's important. And the grades that are accessible to a lot of people. So this has been really informative and very helpful. So thank you. I'm ready to make a motion.
Ready to hear a motion.
I would move that we accept the proposal for the Eggett to Holbrook Trail extension from Elite Landscape Services for $123,260.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? In the further discussion, I will make a comment, and that is that in the other areas of the city where there are trailheads, the road leading to those trailheads, I believe, is significantly wider than this one. And I think, especially on the south side of Barton Creek Lane, the homes, because of terrain, are located very close to the street. So it is going to have, if we get parking on both sides of the streets, if the parking and activity moves significantly out of the park, it could have a serious impact, or an impact on the residents here. That's my only comment. Thanks for the robust discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to item number 8. We'll turn that item over to Ms. Amber Corbridge. Thanks, Andreas. Thanks, Mr. Boyce.
Good evening. So our applicant is here tonight for this item. It's the request for a proposed rezone at 2122 Orchard Drive. The property is currently zoned multifamily residential and general commercial. They are proposing MXDR, which is our mixed-use residential zone, with a development plan which is attached. In their proposal, they are proposing to keep 4 of the existing structures, which are multifamily, and adding 2 new multifamily structures and a mixed-use element facing Orchard Drive. The surrounding zones are pretty mixed, as you can see in the zoning map on the screen. We have mixed use to the north, mixed use across the street. To the west, there's some single family in the back, and to the south, some more commercial and multifamily. The purpose for this application is, quote, be part of a solution with creating visually pleasing edifice that contributes to the higher density or moderate income residential need. Creating visually pleasing edifice that contributes to the higher density or moderate income residential need with close proximity to an identified major transit corridor along Orchard Drive. During the November 19th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, the Commission reviewed this item and forwarded a positive recommendation 5-0 with conditions that we'll get to in a minute. The council will need to consider if this proposal is necessary in the interest of the public and in harmony with the objectives and purposes of the general plan and land use code. Also, the development plan, which was provided,
is a development guide and acts as zoning regulations for this project. Any variation to the project would need to go back through for approval. So keep that in mind, that what you're looking at tonight is what is going to be code for this project and acts as an ordinance. The purpose that staff has found in reviewing the application is that this site suffers from outdated and old buildings. It also has non-conforming uses on the property. Also, the property is in an area where our general plan is proposing that it become a live, work, and play area for mixed-use development. And that's found in that 2009 map. And so staff finds that this is appropriate area for this type of proposed rezone. Furthermore, going into the site characteristics, this property is less than 5 acres. The code says that smaller projects that demonstrate outstanding characteristics may be considered. This one is along a major corridor, so that does qualify. Also, the outstanding characteristics are that they have provided some interest, quality, and thoughtful design so that the new buildings blend in with the existing, and they've provided amenities such as plazas and connections throughout the site. We, as a staff, have reviewed it with commission and found that some new elements should be added as a condition of approval, such as benches or tables or chairs to be more inviting. Another condition that we've talked about with the commission was there's 2 parcels for this property or this project, and combining the 2 parcels, the one to the west right here in blue is just a small sliver of landscaping that needs to be part of the project so that it's maintained by the development plan. Moving on, the uses are listed in the packet that would be permitted in this zone. Various retail services, etc. I won't go into detail with those. So talking about parking, this project required a parking study, which the site does provide enough parking stalls for the general office and multifamily, which are proposed. Staff recommends that if any new uses were to come in, if the parking demand goes up, then we would require that we review a new parking study for the new uses. Also, there's concerns with the development exceeding 2 stories near the rear property line where it abuts residential properties. So it is recommended that the 2 multifamily residential buildings in the rear, building D and 1, if expanded or replaced, are limited to 2 stories and are dictated in the development plan. With the phasing plan, the applicant...
Amber, can I ask you while you're on that point?
Yeah, for sure.
This lot has some slope to it, yes? So from Orchard Drive, the buildings that would be at the far western edge.
With these ones here?
Yeah, so would they appear from Orchard as though they are 1 story, even if they are 2, or?
I'm not sure about that, how they would appear from Orchard.
As long as we're talking about that, I had a question about D and 1.
Let me go to the image. Sideways.
If you look on page 55, there's a perspective from Orchard Drive that you can see down the driveway, and you can see that new 2-story building in the background.
Yeah.
The tilt of the head.
Um,
Doesn't look very tall at all.
No,
I had a couple of questions just about height, because the recommendation is that those two buildings, when they get built, D and 1, that they would be restricted to 2 stories.
yes.
But we don't set a height on that.
So the reason we didn't is because the height is actually 35 feet maximum for the zone as a default. And so that's what we allow in our single-family residential zones. So the motion was just that it was 2 stories. There was no indication of like the height.
Okay, so just elsewhere in the report, it talks about the 2 buildings, A and B, that are fronting Orchard. And it's indicated that the facade of A and B will not exceed, the facades that are fronting Orchard will not exceed 35 feet. But then I'm noticing they step up further back.
In the back because of the slopes.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, since we call out 35 feet on A and B, should we do that on D and 1 as well? And then also, I'm wondering what that step up is, what is the height of the back of the western parts of those buildings?
Right here. Let's see, this is the front. Is it this page too, right here? Oh. It's blurry. 37 from, let's see.
I may be able to answer some of these
Mr.
questions.
Astorga, please.
If I may. If I may. The mixed-use zone is very unique, unlike all of the other districts, in that through your legislative authority, through this zone change, we're in essence creating specific code for this specific property. With that said, the Planning Commission didn't feel the need to be specific in the height parameter per se by assigning a specific foot provision based on what Amber just indicated, in that they felt more comfortable limiting it to 2 stories. Furthermore, the buildings on front would be limited to this development plan, and which is approximately 35, 36, 37 feet. The way that we are supposed to measure height per our current code, regardless of the zoning designation, is that we take it from average grade. So if you're worried about the buildings along the front, they will meet the 35. But you gotta keep in mind that should this zone change be approved in the near future or tonight, this development plan becomes the blueprint, no pun intended, for the site plan review process. So they are not able to, for example, squeeze in another story or not comply with this. As Amber indicated at the very beginning of her presentation, if they want to do that, they have to come back through the legislative process, through the zone change, and amend the ordinance. Did that help out a little bit, or did I further confuse by my not interpretation, but by my comments?
I think it helped.
I hope so.
Can I help as well?
I'm just wondering if somebody with better vision, maybe on page 68, it shows an actual elevation, like a height. Can somebody just, okay, Lloyd.
37.
Using my eagle vision, thanks to Steve Jobs, I've been able to calculate a height of about 33.9 feet from the floor level indicated to top of the plate on the elevations there on page 69. So there is a space, well, there's actually a dimension there. Hang on a sec.
So I come up with 92 feet at the top of that building. Oh, that's still not the top.
The dimension off on the right-hand side says 37 feet.
7 at the bottom.
5 inches.
Let me comment on the buildings in the back, if I could first, Councilmember Price Hewish. The property just north of this one had townhomes built on it years ago. And the folks on Penman Lane felt that the buildings at the back of that project were very obtrusive to their privacy in their backyards. The developer of this project has pushed building, whichever the new building is it 1 or D? Building D as far east as they can to provide not only a substantial setback, helping to preserve privacy for those folks, but they were also happy to limit the height of the building to 2 stories. And the 2 stories meaning that those neighbors will still enjoy some of their privacy. When building 1 eventually ages out and has to be replaced, the deed of this property will show that that still has to be limited to 2 stories in height, so that it's still as pleasant for the neighbors to the west as possible. As far as the buildings on the front, the 35-foot height at street level is going to be all people will see from the street, because the increase in height comes at a significant setback on top of the building for the rear portion of the building. That's just my opinion.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I ask a question to Amber, but in a different vein?
Would you please?
Moderate income housing plan,
Yes.
does this project help us with any of our strategies that we've selected thanks to the state's awesome requirement for that plan?
It does, and we'll be able to report it next year if this goes through.
Will any of these units, could we just address the developer? Because we know he's here. Okay. Will any of these units be for sale? Are they all rentals? What is the current plan?
We're both going to come up, so if I say something wrong, he can poke me in the side. I'm Randy Byer with Knowlton General. This is Brian Knowlton, and obviously representing the development, we are actually owners as well. But the whole purpose of this project is to provide somewhat of an affordable housing option here in the Bountiful community. And to answer your question specifically, most of these will be for rent, especially at the front. Those will remain for rent in the new buildings as we add the residential units there. Everything at the back at this point is currently looking at a lease option, not for sale.
Thank you.
If Cicely, if I could just add, when we contemplated this project and bought this land, about a year and a couple months ago, one of the things that we loved was those existing 16 units are affordable. We loved that that back area was done garden style. It's very open. And so what we presented right out of the chute was a 2-story back there. And to try to maintain that garden style. And an important component to me was those 16 units and their affordability, because I look at the spectrum of Bountiful, and I'm very invested in this city in housing, and there's a definite need for those. So we didn't want to knock those down. We wanted to keep an affordable option for Bountiful, and affordable is not even affordable to me, but it's affordable to the spectrum. So, but again, what we're trying to accomplish in that back area with the housing stock is the garden style, the affordability, And we put our best foot forward. We did not want to go 3-story. We absolutely wanted to go 2-story with the new building. And I absolutely agreed with planning and zoning on a restriction, because buildings will ultimately need to be replaced. So I'm very comfortable with that restriction. The front building, Cecily, on the height, most of our parameters were happening at Orchard Drive for the 35 feet or whatever is on our plan. That step up in the back, you won't see driving past on Orchard Drive. And that allows us, again, those buildings stair step a little bit. So that allows us just a little flexibility in the housing stock we'll put in those 2 buildings. Sorry.
That's great. The one last thing I wanted to add to that is, Mayor Pro Tem tonight, Richard Higginson mentioned something that I just wanted to clarify a little bit, and that is that in the commission meeting, the whole idea behind that one building that Brian just brought up is there was some concern around that eventually being knocked down, and so we said we would happily oblige to make sure that it was the same height as the building we're proposing here today, which is the one that we want to build. There's no proposal to knock that down right now. The proposal is that if in the future at some later date that it needed to be just because it was deteriorated at that point, that's when that would be a consideration. I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that there's no intent to do that now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate
other
it.
questions?
Any other questions? One other detail I'd like to add is there was a phasing recommendation by the planning staff that would help guarantee that the commercial portion of this project up front gets built. That project to the north that I mentioned earlier had a commercial component that still remains unbuilt to this day. But the Planning Commission felt like, given the constraints of the site, that it would be, and they were going to recommend alternating between the residential buildings in the back, and then a commercial building up front, and then a second residential building in back, and then another commercial building up front. And the Planning Commission seemed fairly united that it would be better for the residents that remain on this site during construction, would be better served by completing those 2 rear buildings first, and then completing the 2 buildings on the street second. It was also discussed at that meeting, excuse me, that the residential units in buildings A and B on Orchard Drive would serve as a guarantee that those buildings get built as well, and that those 2 parcels don't sit vacant like the one to the north. Did I explain that adequately?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great.
So anyway, the phasing that was proposed by the developer is the one that won the day during the discussion of Planning Commission. And so there's no requirement that they be phased alternately front and rear.
Could I ask a question?
Please.
Okay, where Building C, sorry, I was erroneously calling it Building 1, but the duplex.
Yes.
It's kind of in the middle.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything there right now?
No.
Nothing, okay, so that will be just taking a portion of the garden court area.
So if you want to know the absolute truth, the whole idea was, as before mentioned, that some of these garden-style townhomes are not the greatest looking. So our intent is that that's the focal point. As you turn down the drive, you see that duplex. So it helps to tie in the community and the continuity between the buildings at the front and the buildings towards the back that are being added. So that was intentional for that reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have something against single-story unreinforced masonry with low-pitch roofs?
No.
Not in the 70s.
Thank you.
Well, they're still here, could ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, so
But
I
only
know.
because it's you.
Thanks. Okay, so on the, in the plans, it says, there's the parking study. And it talks about parking. And then just looking at some of the renderings, the parking is covered, but maybe it's not going to be covered, it's not going to be covered. Okay. Just wanted to, in one of the renderings, it appears covered, so I thought I would clarify that.
So one of the things that just to touch on that, one of the things that we've found is when you do these mixed-use developments, once you put up parking canopies, it kind of tells the users that are coming in transition. So there's the transition space, which the parking study speaks to. So as the residents are there by night and leaving in the morning to go to their occupations or to school or whatever, they're leaving the site. But if you have a parking canopy, it sends a signal to people that they can't park there. And so, yes, for the commercial people coming in to use the space during the commercial times. So what we found is it's actually a little bit nicer to not do that because it allows them to park where there's a free parking stall. Yeah.
So just speaking to that then, one of the conditions or proposals from the planning department is that there be another parking study if at some point the commercial use is different. And I was not fully understanding like that the commercial use is already kind of, you have office space in mind right now, but if there's more intensive commercial use that requires more foot traffic, so is that just kind of based on, conjecture, or is that what you're planning on right now is office space?
So the reality is we don't currently know. We would love to be able to, hold that crystal ball and say, this is what our use will be. We just don't know until we get further down the pathway and we can start talking to, potential users for this space. And so I think that commission felt that that was a good way to kind of help with that, to make sure that there was adequate parking. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions right now.
It's okay. Thank you.
Anything else from our other council members?
Richard, I have a question.
Please.
As a member of the Planning Commission, I saw that this passed through the Planning Commission 4-2. Can you?
I think this was
It
5-0.
was unanimous.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was
Okay,
5-0.
maybe I read that, and okay, I'm glad to know that, because I thought, what were the, okay, I retract that.
It was probably one of the
Unanimous.
most congruent votes I've seen.
It was kind of a force to be reckoned with.
I'm
that
sorry
night,
that is
Planning
on the
Commission.
record now.
That's okay.
I retract.
The last thing that I would offer, if nobody else has any questions, is I just want to thank staff for all their hard work and energy to put into this. We know that it takes a lot of time on their behalf, and we appreciate them doing that, so.
Okay. Anyone ready to make a motion? On an
Mayor Pro
ordinance.
Tem, despite my favorite car wash going away with this project, I will still make a motion to approve with staff recommendations. Is that going? Okay, good. Good, that is my favorite car wash of all of our city's car washes.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Nope.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, Matt. Any opposed? Okay. We move on. Number 9 also looks like it goes to Ms. Corbridge.
Yes, I've got it on the screen. This is a proposal. It's a change of use, which comes before you because change of uses in commercial zones have to go through a site plan review. Simply what's happening with this site, it used to be a manufacturing use. Now it's going to be a contractor office and storage, indoor storage. And they're just making some site changes such as parking and landscaping, lighting, and a dumpster. In this review on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, after a long debate about the existing vegetation, whether it meets that solid screening device requirement, the commission did forward a positive recommendation 4-2 to the city council to approve the site plan with the conditions. And those conditions are 1, that they maintain existing vegetated screening along the east property line. 2, remove all junk and debris from the property. And 3, meet all staff review comments. Do you have any questions for staff?
Here's your 4 to 2. What questions do you have?
Okay, I have a couple of questions. And first, I'd like to say, I'm glad to see that this is going to be a viable, commercially viable piece of property that is going to be put to good use. The question about the, sorry. I'm just going to ask about the 4-2 vote.
Please.
Could you enlighten us on that?
Absolutely. So Amber, could you put up, can I call you Amber?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Corbridge, could
You
you
can
please
call me
put up
Amber.
the aerial, or go to,
This
maybe
one?
even go to Google Maps.
Okay.
and put- that'll work right there.
Oh, let me
So
go
the
back.
discussion among the Planning Commission was long and detailed. And there was a lot of discussion, especially about that screening clause. Sean Monson, who likes to call himself the something
Variance.
Grinch.
Variance.
The variance Grinch. Is it Grinch?
Yes.
Okay, the variance Grinch was unconvinced that this could be counted as solid screening, despite the fact that most of the time you can't see through it. It is a stretch over what has traditionally been counted as solid screening in Bountiful. What I tried to communicate, and then what Beverly Ward very successfully communicated, is look at the rest of this site. Look at all that wild land. So why are we requiring them to bring one thing up to code and not requiring them to completely landscape this project and bring everything up to code? So the determination by the Planning Commission at the time, and please correct me if I'm getting out in left field here, both of you, was that the level of noncompliance in the use of the building was not being increased by this change of use. That it was actually being improved because parking is going to be improved and lighting, et cetera, and that to require them to bring that one thing up to code and into compliance and not the rest of the project, which would be onerous. It would kill the plan anyway if they had to do all of that. It was logical for us to leave that requirement off of it as well. And despite that discussion, there were still 2 planning commissioners who decided that they would vote against it, and one of those was Sean Monson. I don't remember who the other nay vote was.
Chair. It was Lynn.
Oh, was it Lynn? Okay.
Okay. Alan was absent.
That was, in general, that's what Sean's biggest complaint was. I think it was Lynn's as well, as the lack of compliance with what city practice had been on solid screens. So that was the 4-2 vote.
Has there been a screen like this, Francisco, elsewhere, where it's the code does not say vegetation, but that's what it is here?
We have not come across this, at least in my 5 years. I don't remember coming across a similar project where we utilize this method. What Amber's got on page 83 is the screening that ultimately was considered as solid by the Planning Commission, and that was part of the planning, the Planning Department recommendation. Amber, within the same report, you have the actual code language, don't you?
Right here.
If you don't mind
Yes.
pulling it up, right there, a solid screening device. That was the I guess we could say the stretch. The commission, the 4 votes for it, ultimately, as Councilmember Higginson indicated, they treated it as more of a legal nonconforming situation. As you just barely said, you were right on, and that the commission felt that they're not making the situation any worse.
Could I say one thing as well? That condition now, number 1, which says maintain the existing vegetated screening along the east property line. In the original staff report in Planning Commission, it said if the vegetation is reduced, then the property owner or the project tenant would have to come in and put solid screening in. So there was that backstop, but then Councilmember Bott said, why in the world are we going to police that? They're not bringing anything else. Again, it's that same theme. We're not requiring that they tame the wildland. Why are we going to require them to spend money on a fence that is not necessary if they're not increasing a non-compliance at the building where they're actually using the property? So that was the theme of the night. So that part was removed. If the vegetation falls below what is considered solid screening, then we're gonna have to revisit this down the road. And so the Planning Commission decided that they were kind of feeling their oats that night. They decided that they were gonna take charge of that condition and remove that phrase. So we probably needed Brad there to keep us under his thumb.
So could you just one more time say what that initial language was?
That if do we still have that initial language from Planning Commission?
Amber wrote it, but it was what you said. It was that if the vegetated screening was significantly removed, that the property owner or that the applicant had to comply with the language in the ordinance, which was said that they had to bring back comply with the exact language that was in the code.
Something like that, yeah.
We just simply took the code and slapped it on it as a condition of approval. If vegetation is removed, it shall comply with this in the future. And then after the deliberation from the commission, they felt that it wasn't necessary.
So it was two parts. From staff, it came to us as the screening vegetation shall be maintained, or if it's reduced, then you've got to do this.
Correct.
And the Planning Commission said, nah.
Correct. Too much.
Just because there's so much else there. I mean, why would we focus on that one nonconformity rather than all of the nonconformities on the entire rest of the unused parcel? And this fence or screening device lies quite a distance from where the actual use is going to be happening. So they're not using that part of the property. They're not maintaining that part of the property. It's going to remain wild land, and kids are going to go out, discover things and have fun there. But that was what the Planning Commission wanted to have happen.
We don't do that with other conditions of approval. Hey, if you don't meet here, you shall comply. We just staff felt that we needed to, in that it was a little bit of a stretch, but then the commission said, hey, it's overkill. The code still applies.
Can I ask a question of our staff, Mayor Pro Tem? Either Francisco or Amber, feel free to answer whoever's best position. If at some later point the applicant wanted to build an accessory structure to continue their commercial use on this property, and it crossed the creek and was on the unused portion of that parcel, would the building of that accessory structure trigger a review again where we would maybe reevaluate this, whether the stand of trees meets the solid screening versus then having to meet the ordinance as we would normally interpret it?
It's up to you.
Yes, you would have to review it because that accessory structure will require a site plan review. It would go through the process, through Planning Commission and City Council as the administrative body of site plan reviews. Yes, so you do get another opportunity if another building were to be added on, whether it was another principal dwelling or accessory.
So to my colleagues, I think this one's unusual. I don't always like when we, feel like there's a special case. It's much easier, I think, if we're trying to, as we experienced earlier today, try and make sure we apply some conformity and make sure that we're following best practices and guidelines. But I do sort of love that stand of trees, and I think it would be a shame if it were ripped out and replaced with a fence or a wall. Because the existing building and how they intend to use that building is quite a distance from the back of the lot, and with the assurance that if they expanded their use with additional structures, we could have that revisited. I don't want, there are some residential apartments that are toward the northeast of that back lot, and if this heavy commercial expanded into that corner, the fact that we could revisit it would give me greater comfort, but in the short term, preserving some of our wild tree canopy on that lot does seem a little bit higher and better use to me at this time.
I think that's a really good point, Councilmember Bradshaw. I'm just wondering, does that need to be, if that were how we decide, move forward, does, like you said, a site plan review, that would automatically also trigger the screening, like we would look at the screening again, no matter what? Okay.
Yes, it would. One other piece of information I forgot to share from Planning Commission was the property owner had been in touch with the school district as well about the potential, I believe it was him, about the potential of putting slats in the existing fence, et cetera, and the school district was very anxious to not have that fence become a wind shear and be susceptible to being blown down in our wonderful and balmy east winds, should those arise. The school district would rather have it open.
So you're talking about the chain link fence? So it was hard to tell from the photo. Is that intact, contiguous, that entire length? Uh-huh. Okay. This gets a little covered with vegetation there.
So the bulk of the trees are on the applicant's property side.
I believe all
grass,
of the trees are.
The grass is on the school side.
So is this taken from the school perspective? Okay.
Is the fence on the applicant's side? The fence is owned, or it's on?
It's on the school side.
The fence is on the school side. So how far back is the tree stand? How far back on the property? Well, just from the property line, 10 feet?
Some of the canopy overhangs school
about
district
10.
property, some of it's back a few feet. I think you can
Right
see it
there.
in that overhead shot.
It's right here, you can't, that's the fence, and there's the property.
And we're protecting most of this is because we know that there is no canopy or vegetation on the property to the south for whatever development comes in there. Or would we also want them to put some type of a
That's also
shield?
commercial. Can I answer that, Matt?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Commercial use, so that doesn't require the screening.
Okay.
So it's either the residential use or zone that requires that the screening be installed.
Okay.
How did I do, Francisco?
You passed the first interview if you wanted to work.
Okay, one more thing. So the language that is proposed is maintain the existing vegetated screening. So I'm just wondering, just from, because this is unusual, it is not really in, maybe we have a alternate motive to keep the wild tree canopy going there. It is providing a screen, but I do have a tiny bit of concern, like at what point do we say it's not being maintained? I mean, is there, what that looks like when a wall has come down or fencing has come down. We're not really sure what we're agreeing to here. What does this look like if we move forward with this, what is maintenance? And I know that you were saying, well, we decide not to be overly prescriptive, but we are allowing this unique situation.
Right. So we decided not to be overly prescriptive, however, the code still applies. So that was one of the reasons why Amber included that photograph in that if something happened to that wild tree canopy, I like that term, by the way, that you utilized, in that if we were able to see through it, we could compare the photograph with the current situation, and then my department could act on it and say, hey, there was a windstorm, these trees came down, you got to do something. You got to meet the code. So that's how we would treat it. It's very thick. That's why we considered it compliant as a solid device. So it's very thick. So it would be the same way that a wall that needed to be repaired or a wall that was supposed to be there to separate uses that came down. It would be the exact same criteria that we would utilize for that.
Any other questions or comments, concerns, ideas?
Sounds good.
Be happy to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve architectural and site plan review at 710 North, 500 West.
I'm assuming
Second.
that's with the staff recommendations stipulated.
Okay. With staff recommendations stipulated.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Well, Amber, I'm sorry to inform you that we're done with your agenda items. Item 10, Mr. Craig Christensen.
Thank you for having me here tonight, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Come to talk about 3 truck purchases. So part of our budgeting process is to replace some staff trucks in a 5-year interval and crew trucks in the 8-year intervals. So this year's budget reflects 2 staff trucks and a crew truck. Some of the analysis of this, the staff trucks is for our metering and regulatory specialist. They take care of the meters around town and fire hydrants and valves. So part of their job is required to pull around our vacuum trailer to various job sites. Those are heavy, so we require 3/4 ton trucks for that. Also, the cabin chassis with the utility bed, so heavy trucks for our crews. These trucks carry our generators and air compressors, all the tools, and they have to pull around our mini excavator to the different job sites and loads of pipe, things like that. So we did reach out to a couple vendors. For the staff trucks, we reached out to Salt Lake Valley Ram. Each truck we got bids for were $48,684 for a total of the 2 trucks, $97,368. Young Ford of Ogden, $52,787 per truck, so that equals 105. As far as the crew trucks go, we also reached out to Salt Lake Valley Ram. Their cabin chassis with utility bed installed would be $112,640. Young Ford of Ogden, $110,864. The purchase of these vehicles have been reviewed by the city manager and the public works director. Some of the impacts, we do have in this year's budget $100,000 for the replacement of the 2 staff pickup trucks, and also $100,000 for a replacement of the crew truck. We'll have sufficient funding to cover the extra on that crew truck in our capital budget. So it is staff recommendation that council approve the purchase of 2 staff pickup trucks from Salt Lake Valley Ram in the amount of $97,368, and the purchase of a crew truck and utility bed from Young Ford of Ogden in the amount of $110,864, and total that would be $208,232. I'll answer any questions if there are any.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes,
I'm ready to make a motion.
please.
I move that we approve the 2 staff truck purchases and the crew truck with utility bed at the stated prices.
Second.
Is there any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Christensen.
Perfect, thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Sorry for the late hour. Mr. Alan Johnson.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, it's good to be here tonight. And as this is some of the continuing purchases for the substation that we're rebuilding over by Viewmont. This is a circuit switcher. This is actually a rated 46,000 volts, and it's used to isolate the transformer, and also it's a protection device for it. So if there's a fault, it will actually break the load and open the switch and give it a visible open. We did go out to bid, and we did receive 2 bids. The low bid from S&C Electric is the brand that we have in our other substations, so we're familiar how to operate with those and make it work with it. And again, this was pulled by the Power Commissioner, so it would come with the staff and Power Commission recommendation that we accept the low bid from Irby for the S&C Electric Company for the circuit switcher for the total of $151,078. This wasn't identified within the money for the Northwest Substation rebuild, and is bringing the parts, which unfortunately I'll be back with several more before we get through at this. But I'd be glad to answer any questions.
So Alan, the longer lead time is not a concern to your operation?
No, it is actually a concern, and it's about as far as we want to get out. It's still within the time frame to be able to do it. But like I say, we compensated it on the fact that this is the brand that we've been working with and we were familiar with, and we'd much rather get the low bid, plus it's the one we'd like to work with because we're familiar with how to operate those. Won't have to learn how to work on 2 different pieces of equipment. So.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, just to follow up on that, because if the project's scheduled to begin in September of '25 and a 74-week lead time, and that puts you past next September, is this a phase of the rebuild where it can be installed towards the end of the rebuild project?
Yes. Yeah, like I said, we're going to be, as we start taking this out of commission September, October of next year, working through the winter months. This would put it coming back in the spring, be one of the last things that we would install and hook up as we got into it. So all the steel, cabling, relaying, all that would still be in place when we brought that in, so.
Okay. Well, if you're comfortable with that schedule, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm happy to make a motion.
Great.
I might also mention, S&C typically will tell you a time frame and then they beat it, unlike some of our suppliers that gave us a time frame been much longer. So we are comfortable that we'll be able to make this work at this point. So,
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve the purchase of the circuit switcher from Irby.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Alan.
all right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
And for our second to last item, Mr. Hill, go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. Each year, cities are required to give public notice of their annual meeting schedule, and that notice specifies the time, date, and location of your anticipated meetings. You have before you a schedule for 2025 where we are recommending maintaining the same council schedule, which is meeting the second, fourth Tuesdays of each month. This course can be changed at any point if you need additional meetings or we need to cancel a meeting. So it's staff's recommendation that you approve the 2025 meeting schedule.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. None to be opposed. Okay, for our last item, I'll turn to one of my council members for a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.